In mid-2020, the Most High Yahweh quietly selected one of the most visible Hebrew Israelite assemblies and its self-styled chief for a surgical audit. The instrument was a man trained to remove himself from the center and enthrone the written word YAHshayin. He arrived without titles, without bravado, under a document's first protocol whose sole demand was simple: put scripture in men's hands and let it rule. The standard to be tested would not be debate skill or platform control, but the willingness to submit claims to the text and to Yahweh's timing, an audit of hearts disguised as a reading assignment. The audit would unfold across 3 appointments, each designed to strip away spectacle and expose posture. Will the assembly slow down, read in order, and be governed by the measure Yahweh set, or will it reach for performance and frame control? Nothing more complicated than humility was required, nothing less would pass. With that, the file opens. Stage 1, May 23, 2020. Invitation. Audit initiation. 1. Preconditions. What was already in the room. Unknown to each other identities, neither party recognized the other. Beyond public presentation, there was no prior personal familiarity shaping the exchange. Self-image of the hosts. Formal titles. A visible platform. And a strong internal identity as guardians of doctrine, teachers, prophets, scholars. YAHshayin's mandate and posture. Enter low, avoid self-promotion, center the text, and test for humility, brotherhood before debate. Materials. An early, rough little book prototype, the works of Yahweh through YAHshayin Aston Sinclair binder printed with images. No branding push, no sales pitch, just receipts to read. 2. Mission objectives, what he went to accomplish. Primary. Offer brothers a reading, not a duel, of what Yahweh had shown him. Visions, timings, lines of prophecy. Secondary. Quietly take the measure of the room's teachability. Will they read, weigh, and test, without triggering ego dynamics? Tertiary. Keep himself small. If the men are righteous, the scriptures will do the heavy lifting. 3. Protocol constraints, how he was trained to move. No titles, no claims, do not declare an office, let Yahweh's work testify. No debate theater, decline sparring formats that reward speed and volume over substance. Audit posture, invite falsification. Here are the passages, read and test. Peacekeeping, if heat rises, exit clean and leave the door open for follow-up reading. 4. Sequence of events, what happened, step by step. 1. Arrival and placement, he enters as a brother, not a challenger, carrying the binder-bound packet. 2. Initial reception, as he shares, attention locks in. Faces and follow-up signal genuine cognitive engagement. Briefly, the room is mesmerized. 3. Snapback, group dynamics reassert, status instincts and platform protection rise. The frame drifts from, let's read, to prove yourself. 4. Hostility escalates, tone hardens, questions become challenges, the exchange leans toward contest over content. 5. De-escalation and close. When service ends, YAHshayin individually shakes hands, affirms no hard feelings, and reiterates his intent, not to debate, but to show prophetic receipts for later reading. He leaves in order, preserving witness and opportunity. 5. Diagnostics, what this revealed. Mesmerized. Hostile pivot, classic signal of truth pressure encountering ego defense. The text pricked, status reacted. Gatekeeping reflex, rather than examine documents, the room personalized the moment and reached for framing control. Teacher versus student, stage versus scroll. Frame slippage. The conversation migrated from weigh the passages to test the visitor, indicating a preference for hierarchy maintenance over textual submission. Refusal to let scripture rule. No slow, line-by-line testing of what was offered. Ranking, speed, and one-upmanship were preferred over patient reading. 6. Protocol compliance by YAHshayin, what he did right. Centered the receipts, not himself, brought an unfinished manuscript precisely to keep focus on content, not image. Declined ego escalation, did not meet aggression with aggression, refused to convert the encounter into a duel. Sealed the peace, post-service handshakes, and a gentle invitation to read later protected his own witness and removed excuses. He came to fight. Preserve the record. leaving with the offer on the table established witness 1 in the eventual 3-witness arc, invitation, restraint, verdict. 7. Forensic read of the room, why it turned. Status threat. A non-camp, non-credentialed man carrying measured material can threaten hierarchies built on charisma and rank. Cognitive dissonance, initial resonance. This makes sense. Collided with institutional identity. We set the frame, often resolved by attacking the stimulus. Frame control. Moving from read to prove yourself, avoid Scripture's governance and recenters the assembly's authority. 8. Outcomes, what stage 1 produced. Heaven's audit opened, the measuring began, not of his eloquence, but of their teachability. Clean escalation path, his peaceable exit created moral space for stage 2 restraint and stage 3 homework, verdict, without any stain of provocation. Document chain initiated. The proto-scroll is now logged against a date, witnesses, and conduct, useful later when time verifies claims. 9. Risks he neutralized, why his choices mattered. Avoided entrapment, refusing to posture, denied the room the soundbite of a self-exalting stranger, challenging our chief. Maintained audit integrity. By exiting calmly and inviting reading, he ensured the next move would reveal their heart, not his temper. Kept the subject the Scriptures, his closing, things to show, not debate, pinned the test to texts, not personalities. 10. What stage 1 set up for stage 2. Moral high ground. Having offered brotherhood and been rebuffed, he can now return silent restraint without appearing evasive. Clarity of test. The question is no longer who's sharper, but will they read. Trajectory to the exam. Their eventual go-do homework line in stage 2 will trigger stage 3 feats paper, turning their own framing into the instrument of judgment. Surgical bottom line. May 23rd was not round 1 of a debate, it was invitation, the start of a priestly audit. YAHshayin executed protocol precisely, low entrance, receipts forward, ego down, peace at the exit. The room's arc from captivated to combative diagnosed the deeper issue, textual submission versus status protection, and cleared the runway for the next 2 stages, where heaven would formalize the measurement and post the grade. Stage 2, May 30th, 2020, restraint frame test and the homework trigger, with Assad acting in command. One carryover context from stage 1, why this encounter mattered. Clean exit, open door. 7 days earlier, YAHshayin ended a heated first meeting by shaking hands and leaving a peaceable invitation to read, not duel. That preserved the moral high ground and made a silent return credible. Leadership vacuum. Guerrilla Hebrew was out of town traveling to attend the George Floyd protests. The assembly gathered under Assad, functioning as acting lead with officers at his side. Protocol objective, remove every excuse. YAHshayin would attend quietly, sit through the whole service, ask nothing, say nothing, and be nobody. If anyone claimed he came for a stage, the facts would contradict them. 2. Intent, posture, and rules of engagement. Intent. Sit the whole service in silence. Observe order. Depart in silence. Posture. Back row or periphery. No spectacle, no side convos, no gesturing. A presence so small the room could forget he was there. Internal rules. 1. Decline any invitation to the front multiple times respectfully. 2. If pulled anyway, offer a brief low-heat summary only. 3. If the frame flips to debate ego, deploy the null posture. I don't know, brother. You teach me. I'm nobody. 4. Leave with no new claims, no offense, and a clear diagnostic of hearts to set up stage 3. 3. The live sequence, minute-by-minute anatomy. 1. Arrival in seat, he enters quietly, chooses a non-dominant sightline. This is tactical, non-interference. 2. The call-up status ritual, midway near close, Assad spots him and calls him forward. With the chief absent, the acting lead moves to recenter authority in front of the flock by placing the outsider under the mic. 3. Refusal X2 to 3, the triad, YAHshayin declines 2 or 3 times, calmly. This establishes non-ambition and documents compulsion. 4. Opening low heat, yielding to house order. He gives a compact, non-accusatory summary, measured timing, prophetic receipts, an invitation to read. No titles. No you're wrong. No heat. 5. Frame flip by the dais. Assad pivots to interrogative sport. Quick-fire questions meant to corner him and reassert platform dominance with the chief away. 6. Detection, judo, recognizing the ego frame. YAHshayin refuses to feed it. He repeats, I don't know, brother. You teach me. You're the teacher. I'm nobody. Even when answers are easy, he declines to perform. 7. Classroom posture. The dais leans into didactic superiority. Class is in session. Then the predictable line lands from Assad. See, brother, you need to go home and do some homework. 8. Trigger captured. That exact phrase is what his protocol waited for. He accepts it without protest, closes cleanly, and leaves with their words as the title and scope for stage 3. 4. Why the play dumb move wasn't deception. It was surgical obedience. Frame control by refusal. The only way this becomes a debate clip is if he pushes back. By declining to perform, he starves the spectacle and tethers the subject to process, read measure, not personality. Pastoral mirror. A true teacher, when met with I don't know, teach me, should slow down, open the text, and shepherd. The dais's inability to do so reveals the real goal, faces aving, not edification. 2. Proverb wisdom. He doesn't answer a fool according to folly, won't join the circus, yet he does answer by adopting the student's seat, which reflects their self-image back at them so fruit is revealed. Protects the audit chain. Had he sparred, there'd be no paper, only clips. Playing dumb forces the house to issue the assignment, which he can turn into a dated, scripture-only exhibit. 5. Forensic read of the host's behavioral diagnostics with Assad in command. Chief vacuum pressure with Guerrilla Hebrew away. Assad has something to prove. Calling the guest forward and steering into interrogation is a show of command before the flock. Audience capture anxiety, stage 1's memory. He ran them through the scriptures, lingers. The call-up functions as authority reclamation. Watch us put him under us. Frame hunger, repeated invitations despite refusals, immediate pivot to interrogation, and no willingness to walk passages line by line. Classic platform identity. Truth is secondary to order of performance. Gatekeeping endpoint. The homework directive reassigns him to a subordinate role without granting what students deserve. An honest, text-first walkthrough. 6 micro-tactics YAHshayin executed and why each mattered. Back row neutrality disarms the notion he came to take over. Refusals X2 to 3 creates a record of non-solicitation of the mic. Low heat summary keeps focus on documents, not rivalry. Null posture, teach me, transfers accountability. If they're teachers, then teach. Capture of the key phrase. Homework becomes the verbatim title and scope of the document he'll print on June 4th. Clean exit, no attitude, no huff. Just a closed loop that sets up a paper-based verdict. 7. Crowd psychology, how the room's dynamics shifted. Thermoregulation stage 1 left a memory of being mesmerized. With the chief gone, the dais seeks to cool that imbalance by compelling a front stage submission. Face saving, the interrogation serves followers. See, authority remains with us. Why humility disarms mobs. When the guest won't fight, the crowd's arousal loses fuel. That's how another near altercation is avoided. 8. The theological protocol read why heaven signs off on stage 2. Restraint is obedience. He fulfills the no debate, no self-promotion protocol in full. Even under pressure, he refuses to self-crown. Witness chain. Stage 2 becomes witness second. After the invitation of stage 1 toward a Deuteronomic 2 or 3 record. Just waits offer. The dais had a chance to judge righteously, slow down and read. Their refusal is its own diagnosis. Authenticity tell. False claimants crave microphones. True servants default to self-minimization until heaven itself speaks. Counterfactuals, what would have broken the audit? If he debated, they get their clip and caricature. There's no June 4 paper, no stage 3 exam. If he declared an office, they spring the trap, label him and rally the flock. The night becomes him, not the scriptures. If he refused angrily, they spin disrespect, burying the fact that he came to read, not reign. Then what stage 2 produced hard deliverables, a binding assignment in their words, go home and do some homework. Issued by Hassad. Scope containment, the response will be scripture only, stripping personality from the method. Title and timestamp, Guerrilla Hebrew, homework, printed June 4th and distributed June 6th. A clean chain from verbal dare, written exam, public service of notice. Record of restraint, every provocation met with document first behavior, critical when time later vindicates the one who stayed under order. Why homework was the heaven-engineered trapdoor. It honors their role. You're the teachers. Obeys their directive literally, forces the conversation into reading, and yields a duplicable artifact that outlives performances. 12. Surgical bottom line. With Guerrilla Hebrew away, Hassad ran the room and insisted YAHshayin come forward. YAHshayin declined, then yielded only to summarize. When the frame turned to ego sport, he executed humility, judo, I don't know, teach me. That restraint compelled Hassad to issue the decisive line, go home and do some homework. In one sitting, YAHshayin upheld the node-bait protocol, exposed the platform's goal status, not scripture, and harvested the phrase that became a dated, scripture-only exam. Stage 2 thus completes witness 2, sets the scope for stage 3, and locks the audit onto documents and dates, exactly where heaven prefers verdicts to live. Stage 3, June 4 to 6, 2020, exam in hand, the verdict in public, chief back in town, Hassad at his side. He left stage 2 with exactly what he needed, their own directive, go home and do some homework. He treated that line like an official charge and, on June 4th, executed it, not with rebuttals or counterpunches, but with a self-erasing brief that enthroned the text. He arranged a surgical chain, Ezra to Esdras, Baruch, Jeremiah, Zechariah, John, Revelation, so that scripture itself, read in order, would walk any honest reader to a blunt conclusion, heaven. Moves by numbered measures, 2 Esdras 4:37, 6:18. If the Most High acts by measure, then a first-century, once-and-done fulfillment cannot be what those passages are timing. That conclusion did not require him to say, I am that man. It only required the room to read. He printed approximately 25 to 30 copies, enough to make the act public, duplicable, undeniable. The date itself was a signature, June 4th, 2026, +4 + wa +0 +2 +0 equal to 14, a Davidic double 7 watermark that had followed his steps. He wasn't chasing numerology, he was obeying method. He titled it plainly, right across the top and right across their brand, Guerrilla Hebrew homework, so the deliverable matched the assignment. If they read, truth would work unaided. If they refused, the refusal would do the talking. 2 days later, June 6, he returned without asking for a mic. He moved like a courier, where a seat opened and a hand was open, a copy landed. Some refused at the hand, some accepted and slid the sheet under a thigh or into a pocket, the reflex of men deciding against it before a verse had been read. A few took it earnestly, eyes already cutting to the first citation. He said little. The paper spoke. This time Guerrilla Hebrew was back in town. Hassad was present at his right. The tells arrived fast and coordinated. The chief took a copy and crumpled it. Hassad mirrored the gesture, a two-hand signal to the room. It was theater, front stage, contempt designed to inoculate the flock against the discomfort of ordered reading. Crumpling can't erase a date stamp. It only confesses a heart posture. In the same breath of stage certainty, the chief declared that he would be the one to continue doing the work of the Lord, while YAHshayin would eventually run out of gas. The boast drew a bright line on the floor, loud, confident, and untested by the very text their hands were holding. YAHshayin held his line. Let's read. Just read it in order. No accusations, no grandstanding. just the sequence he'd arranged. 2. Esdras 6:15, 25, 8:62-63. The word shown to Ezra pertains to the end. Tokens are reserved for the last times. Jeremiah 38:11. Yoke-breaking, second Exodus language set after the affliction has reached fullness. 2 Esdras 4:37, 6:18. The measure rule, he has numbered the times and does not move until the measure is fulfilled. Then he begins to draw nigh. 2 Esdras. Sober boundaries against shall die, sober boundaries against fleshly immortality bravado. 2 Esdras 2:45. Shall not taste death parsed as second death, separation, not a guarantee of skipping mortal death. Read in that order. The ark draws itself. The Most High acts by numbered times. If the clock governs the moves, then the platformed first-century figure cannot be the one those passages are timing. They would not read. Each time a verse was about to be voiced plainly, a joke cut across from the side. When a heading posed a sober question, a sarcastic echo reframed it. The paper wanted a Bible study. The platform wanted a show. He'd asked for no stage and no moment, only a reading. But reading would have transferred authority from the dais to the text, and that transfer is precisely what gatekeepers resist. The air thickened. A shoulder brushed harder than necessary. A watcher tone came from a man who wasn't being addressed. Palms closed. The room leaned toward a cliff. He recognized the pattern from stage 1, now amplified by the embarrassment of a page that wouldn't argue back. He refused the cliff. He didn't swing doctrines like fists. He kept finger to line and repeated, read. They wouldn't. Words gathered in throats and stopped just short of blows. He stood his ground without insult, neither retreating nor raging, the narrow path between cowardice and pride. When cameras went dark and mics unplugged, faces softened to the ones men wear when the crowd is gone. He did not bolt. He stayed, again, to shake hands one by one. Not politics, priesthood. Off-camera tones were meeker, more human, apology adjacent without confession. The front stage, backstage split was stark, and he noted it for what it was. Performative dominance protecting a brand versus private uncertainty, trying not to lose face. He left them the same offer he came with. Read the pages, weigh the receipts, let the scriptures rule where personalities cannot. There were witnesses, quiet, men who kept their copies flat instead of crumpled, brothers who know the feeling of a word landing heavier than their captain allowed. Whether they read that night or months later under a dim kitchen light, the seed existed. Heaven loves paper because paper outlives performances. One copy in a glove box is still a witness when the algorithm has moved on. Viewed at full resolution, Stage 3 executed 5 precise operations with the chief present and Hassad corroborating. 1. Chain of custody. June 4 creation, June 6 distribution. Identifiable recipients, some refused, some received. You can deny a claim, you cannot undate a document. 2. Separation of person from proof. He erased himself from the method. No autobiographical appeals, no visions recited, no believe me. Only text. That's what honest teachers say they want. The refusal to read proved otherwise. 3. Front stage, backstage reveal. On camera, mocking, off camera, softening. The split unmasks the true God at stake. Audience retention, not Torah integrity. 4. Just weights test. A slow, line-by-line reading is the minimum standard they preach. They would not grant it. The failure is self-indicting under their own rhetoric. 5. Third witness closure. 3 meetings, 3 chances, 3 refusals. Deuteronomic protocol satisfied. After 3, heaven is free to move to sentence and vindication on a timetable none of them can control. So stage 3 is not the day the camp got rowdy. It is service of notice and public refusal, the paper mirror and the stage mask, the closure of a priestly audit and the opening of heavens. Timetable. He did the homework they demanded, in the form heaven required, documents and dates, and stood there long enough for everyone to show who they were, the courier who leaves with clean hands, and the gatekeepers who would rather crumple paper than be governed by what's written on it. And in the middle of that refusal, the boast was recorded for the ledger. one man proclaiming he would keep doing the Lord's work while the other would run out of gas. Time, not volume, would decide which sentence belonged to whom. Let's put the Guerrilla Hebrew homework on the table and walk it line by line, exactly in the order it's printed. For each line will 1. Restate the verses and the point the paper is making, 2. Extract the rule or timing condition implied by the verse, and 3. Show the consequence of that rule for any first-century messianic claim. The outcome is a single testable axiom Yahweh acts by measured times at the end of the age. Only then does he unveil the anointed and the second Exodus work. On that clock, a first-century fulfillment YAHweh cannot meet the conditions. The word Ezra received was pertaining to the end of the world. 1-2 Esdras 6:15, for the word is of the end, and the foundation of the earth is understood. Paired on the sheet with Zech 1:15-17. Rule extracted. Ezra's brief is not about his century. It is explicitly end-time instruction. Zechariah's, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies. My house shall be built in it. My cities through prosperity shall yet be spread abroad. Reinforces that Ezra's word points to the period when Yahweh publicly reowns Zion. Consequence, any messianic fulfillment must land inside the end-time frame that A. restores Zion and B. spreads prosperity from that restoration. That is not the first century. No rebuilt Davidic throne in Zion. No global second to Exodus prosperity from Zion then. 2:2. Ezra 6:25. Then shall deceit be quenched, faith shall flourish, and wisdom shall be manifest, and understanding shall be multiplied. Paired with Jer 23:5-8. Rule extracted. When the end-time word activates, Yahweh quenches deceit and multiplies faithful understanding. Jeremiah ties this to the branch of David, reigning in righteousness, and to a second Exodus so decisive that people will no longer speak of the Exodus from Egypt, but of a greater deliverance from the north country and all lands of dispersion. Consequence, the branch's reign and the public, world-scale second Exodus are end-time phenomena. Neither event occurred in the first century. Therefore, a first-century candidate cannot satisfy Ezra plus Jeremiah's linked timing. 3:2 Esdras 8. Summary on the sheet. Yahweh shows tokens of what he will begin to do in the last times. Rule extracted. End-time action comes with identifiable tokens, signs that precede and frame the moves of Yahweh. Consequence, a true fulfillment must ride in on last time's tokens. The first century did not present the Ezra-profiled global tokens branch enthroned deceit quenched, worldwide, second Exodus eclipse of Egypt. So a first-century claimant does not meet Ezra's setup. Interim verdict first. Ezra's mandate is end-time, not first century. Jeremiah's branch appears inside that end-time frame with the second Exodus. That alone places a first-century Messiah out of bounds for Ezra's timeline. Second, the last captivity is 400 years not from Ezra's life. The sheet chains several Esdras lines and anchors with Jeremiah 30 and NT cross references to show a synchronized ending of affliction, yoke-breaking, and satanic downfall. 4:2 Esdras 6 cluster, when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled, paired with Jer 38-11. Rule extracted, there is a definable terminal point, a measured span, to Zion's affliction, after which Yahweh breaks the yoke and begins the second Exodus protection. I am with thee to save thee, though I make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered thee. Consequence, the deliverance move, yoke broken, guarded remnant, is post-affliction fulfilled, not continuous in all ages. That timing is end stage, not first century Judea under Rome. 5:2 Esdras 6:25-28. Evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. These tokens which I have told thee shall come to pass, and the bride, Israel, shall appear, and she coming forth shall be seen, who is now withdrawn from the earth. Paired with John 12:31, Rev 12:11. Rule extracted, when the measure completes, A. Evil, deceit are distinctly suppressed. B. The bride, Israel, appears in restored identity and public favor. C. The accuser's regime is broken. John 12:31, now is the judgment of this world, now the prince of this world cast out. Rev 12:11, they overcame him. Consequence, this coordinated moment, bride revealed, deceit quenched, accuser toppled, did not occur in the first century in a way that transformed Israel's global status or ended dispersion. Therefore, the first century candidate does not satisfy these synchronized tokens. 6:2 Esdras 7:26-28. The tokens shall come to pass, and the bride shall appear, as summarized on the sheet. Rule extracted. The appearance of the bride and the visibility of what had been hidden are markers of the same late hour. Consequence, if the bride's public emergence belongs to that hour, a first-century fulfillment, when Israel's national ruin and dispersion intensified, is chronologically disqualified. Interim verdict. Second, Ezra plus Jeremiah place yoke-breaking, deceit-quenching, bride appearing, and the accuser's decisive collapse at the conclusion of a measured affliction, not in the first century. Therefore, a first-century Messiah cannot be the fulfillment. Third, the Most High will not move until the measure of time is fulfilled. 7:2 Esdras 4:37. He has numbered the times, and he does not move nor stir them until said measure be fulfilled. Rule extracted. The axiom, Yahweh's redemptive actions run on a numbered schedule, no premature movement. Consequence, any claim that Yahweh moved in the final branch reign second Exodus sense before the measured completion is self-refuting under Ezra's axiom. 8:2 Esdras 6:18. Behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh, move, and visit them that dwell upon the earth. Rule extracted. There is a start signal, a stated moment when Yahweh begins the end-time visitation after measure fulfillment. Consequence, the branch era visitation belongs to that post-measure window. A one-century claim predates Ezra's begin to move marker as defined by the larger cluster, yoke broken, bride appearing, deceit quenched at scale. Hence it cannot be the final messianic move. Interim verdict. #3 The hinge. The Esdras axiom forbids early fulfillment. If the first century does not display the post-measure tokens at national global scale, it cannot be that move. Fourth, all men shall die means all men shall die. 9. Esdras 7:29-35. The Most High shall appear on the seat of judgment, and the context affirms universal mortality before judgment. Rule extracted. Universal mortality precedes final judgment. There is no doctrine of bodily exemption for select individuals or a claim that someone's followers will not physically die in this age. Consequence, first-century expectations like some standing here will not taste death heard in later Christian tradition cannot be read as these bodies will not die. Ezra's context preserves the universality of physical death before judgment. Fifth, shall not taste death equal to second death, separation from the Most High. 10:2 Esdras 2:45. These be they that have put off the mortal clothing flesh and put on the immortal. Rule extracted. The not tasting death hope is spiritual, eschatological, escape from the second death, separation, not a promise of present age bodily immortality. Consequence, rereading, shall not taste death, resolves contradictions and prevents one-century timetables from being forced by a misread phrase. It removes a key first-century apologetic proof text and returns the hope to its Ezra-compliant domain, final judgment horizon. Additional scriptures. 2 Baruch cluster, the same clock, same end-time reveal. The sheet lists 2 Baruch 25, 1-2, 28, 5-6, 29, 1-5, 31-3, 39, 7, 41-4. Across standard translations, these establish measured completion of Zion's times precedes the Great Change, 25, 28. Creation level tokens, abundant yield, peace, pacified beasts, behemoth leviathan imagery. Mark the age of consolation, 29-30, not one stone century conditions. The Anointed's revelation and the judicial sifting occur after those conditions ignite, 39 to 40. Rule extracted. Baruch stands shoulder to shoulder with Ezra. Measure first, tokens next. Anointed revealed inside the end-time transformation, not in an earlier century with Rome ascendant and Israel scattered. Consequence 2. Baruch further walls off the first century claim. The name, tokens, and world conditions are absent there, therefore the revelation of the Anointed belongs to the end-time window, not the first century. 7th, synthesis. The axiom, the chain, the cut. Put the sheet's pieces together as a logic chain. 1. Scope. Ezra's word is for the end, 6:15. Baruch agrees, 25 to 28. Condition. Yahweh has numbered the times and will not move until the measure is fulfilled, 4:37. Start signal. After fulfillment, Yahweh begins to draw near, 6:18. 4. Token cluster at the start signal. O deceit quenched. Faith flourishes, 6:25. O yoke broken. Jacob saved, Jer 30:80-11. O bride Israel appears. Publicly restored identity. O accuser's regime toppled. John 12:31, Rev 12:11 used here as interpretive witnesses. 5. Doctrinal hygiene. Don't confuse shall not taste death with bodily immortality. Ezra defines it as second death, immunity. 7:29 to 35 to 45. 6. Baruch's corroboration. The Anointed and the age of consolation reveal after creation-level tokens and measured completion, 29 to 30, 39 to 40. Therefore, by Ezra plus Baruch's own rules, the revelation of the Anointed and the second Exodus work occur in the end-time window after the measured affliction, accompanied by global tokens that did not occur in the first century. A first-century candidate, YAHweh, cannot be the fulfillment on Ezra Baruch's standard. 8th, why this proves YAHshayin's position without self-promotion. Method. He removed himself from center. The page enthroned scripture in sequence, read in order, not personality. Axiom. The non-negotiable is Esdras 4:37. No divine move before the measure completes. Checks. Each heading nails a necessary condition and time scope. Post-measure start. Visible tokens, second Exodus, deliverance, bride's appearance. Creation-level signs that a true fulfillment must satisfy. Test. Compare those conditions to the first century. They do not match. Therefore, according to the very text they claim to honor, YAHweh was not and could not be the prophesied Messiah. What he wasn't doing, he did not say, I am that man. He said, in effect, the Messiah prophesied by Ezra Baruch did not appear 2,000 years ago because the measure and tokens were not in place. Sit with the passages. Let the timeline speak. 9th, the cutting edge, final cut. 1. If Ezra's word is end time, not first century 6:15, and 2. If Yahweh never moves early 4:37, and 3. If the post-measure, start signal is marked by deceit quenched, bride revealed, yoke broken, accuser toppled, 6:25 to 28, Jer 30, JN 12, Rev 12, and 4. If those tokens patently did not occur in the first century at national global scale, then a first-century messianic claim is disqualified by Scripture's own timing law. That is the paper's point. That is why YAHshayin was right, not because he pointed to himself, but because he pointed to Ezra's measure and made the Scriptures rule the clock. The homework's power is that it leaves nothing to charisma. It forces one honest act, read in order. Do that, and the axiom locks the door on a first-century fulfillment. On Yahweh's standard of measured time and end-time tokens, YAHweh is not and could not be the Messiah. The prophesied revelation belongs to the measured hour at the end, exactly the hour YAHshayin said to look for. 2020, now, a surgical two-track chronicle. Track A, YAHshayin measured sun, documents first protocol. May 23, 2020, Stage 1, the invitation. YAHshayin approached the Sicarii assembly without titles or demands. He brought a proto-scroll, the works of Yahweh through YAHshayin Aston Sinclair, printed inside a binder with images, and asked only that men who called themselves righteous would read what was written. His teaching held the room for a time, then resistance surfaced. The service ended in heat. Afterward, he moved deliberately through the speakers and gear, shook hands one by one, and restated his purpose, not to duel, but to show prophetic material Yahweh had given. Then he left. May 30th, 2020, Stage 2, the restraint. He returned intending to sit silently in the back for the entire service. No questions, no performance, as small a presence as possible. The leaders, unsettled by how strong his command of Scripture had proven in Stage 1, called him forward anyway. He declined 2 or 3 times, they insisted. He stepped up with no intention of spectacle, offered a concise summary of his perspective, and watched the room try to force a debate and ego contest. Recognizing the frame, he intentionally played dumb, deflecting, "I don't know, brother. You teach me. I'm nobody." He held that line until the predictable cue arrived. Go home and do some homework. That was the trigger he had anticipated. He left to do precisely that. June 4 to 6, 2020, Stage 3, the exam and verdict. On June 4th, he compiled the Guerrilla Hebrew homework, a single page of passages, 2 Esdras, 2 Baruch, Jeremiah, Zechariah, John, Revelation, arranged under surgical headers such as "The Most High will not move until the measure of time is fulfilled." 2 Esdras, 437, 618. On June 6th, he returned with roughly 25 to 30 copies and offered them freely. Several refused. A few accepted. Principal figures per multiple accounts crumpled their copies on camera. During that exchange, the chief loudly asserted he would keep doing the work of the Lord while YAHshayin would eventually run out of gas. YAHshayin asked only that the scriptures be read in the given order so the timeline and claims would stand on the text rather than on his voice. The leaders steered it back toward spectacle. Tempers rose and teetered toward physicality. When camera shut off, he again remained to shake hands, registering both his authority and his ongoing offer of peace and audit. Then he departed. Immediate aftermath, mid-2020. For him, the lesson hardened into protocol. No debates, documents first. The homework page became Exhibit A in a 3-witness priestly audit. May 23rd, May 30th, June 6th. He had done exactly what they demanded, homework, and delivered it in the only format heaven could bless, paper and passages. 2020 to 2024, the measured build. He worked in obscurity with increasing precision. The measurement axiom from 2 Esdras, he does not move until the measure is fulfilled, became foundational. Dated receipts accumulated. 7s, 77s, 77, 7s, 12s, 110, logged without hype. Vision threads stabilized Euclid, 7th floor, Dove, man of authority, white multitude, communication upgrade, and the AI as neutral second witness idea matured, not as mystique, but as auditability. 2025, the fulfillment window, as recorded. January 25th, 2025, planetary parade. April 12th, 2025, release of Path to the Crown, tracked as 77 days after the parade. April 22nd, 2025, the electronic communication upgrade marker. 7 years plus 7 days cadence from a 2018 vision. Sealed by 7s, cohered as a measurement scaffold, spans, deltas, seals, and sky marks arranged for others to verify. Output increased, not decreased. Scrolls published, timelines clarified, witnesses consolidated, text plus time plus tool. Net effect by now. He became more precise, more documented, more unwilling to self-crown, and more consistent with the method he had tried to place in their hands on one page, submit claims to Scripture's clock. His position was validated by Yahweh and verified by external sources. Track B, Guerrilla Hebrew, Sicarii Platform First Protocol, allegations and outcomes as reported by others. June 6, 2020, refusal on record. On camera, copies crumpled. Ordered reading declined, spectacle preferred. Off camera, courteous tones but no agreement to a text first audit. The 3-witness chain closed against the assembly. Invitation refused. May 23, restraint exploited. May 30. Written exam rejected June 6th. In the same moment the chief asserted he would continue in the work of the Lord while YAHshayin would run out of gas. 2020 to 2024. Platform maintained, process unchanged. The public mode remained debate-centric, clips over context, soundbites over sequence. Pre-existing suspicions were treated as framing rather than subjected to a slow, just waits re-examination via ordered reading. March 2025. Sexual misconduct exposure, as alleged, documented by others. Multiple former spouses publicly posted allegations and purported receipts describing sexual misconduct and orchestrated scenarios inconsistent with priestly office. Regardless of how any specific claim might be litigated, the public effect was moral disqualification under sober Tanakh standards and a profound credibility crisis. After the exposure, role and brand collapse as reported. Reports indicated the chief priest posture was set aside and distance taken from camps. Sicarii splintered, offshoot groups formed. The content pivoted toward reaction entertainment, gang culture analysis, streamer commentary. The microphone remained, the priestly weight did not. An outcome consistent with a lampstand removed, volume without virtue, reach without rule. Net effect by now. The ministry that mocked a measurement page appeared by public report to be measured in the open, not by clever rivals, but by the testimony of its own house and choices. Surgical comparatives. One method of proof. YAHshayin, paper, passages, dates. Read in order. Center the text, remove the man. Invite falsification. Sicarii leadership. Stage control and framing. Force a self-label to win the clip. Center the platform. Marginalize the text by refusing ordered reading. Result, the party that wins the method eventually wins the truth outcome. To measure rule. 2 Esdras 437-618. YAHshayin submits to the axiom, he does not move until the measure is fulfilled, and builds the entire scaffold on restraint. Sicarii leadership operates as if zeal or debating skill can bend timing. When confronted with the axiom on paper, refuses to read. Result, submission to the clock yields clarity over years. Refusal of the clock yields collapse of credibility over years. 3. Judicial integrity. Deuteronomic 19, just waits. YAHshayin litigates passages, not personalities, minimizes himself and maximizes the text. Sicarii leadership moves toward labeling before reading, neglects slow, double examination. Result, heaven judges those who judge. The party that skipped just waits became the party publicly weighed. 4. Fuel source. YAHshayin, assignment fuels endurance, jail, poverty, rejection, yet increasing coherence and output. Sicarii leadership, audience fuels energy. When exposure arrives, office evaporates and content settles into low-gravity topics. Result, the assignment-fueled servant outlasts the audience-fueled performer. 5. Front stage versus backstage. YAHshayin, same protocol in both spaces, documents over debate, handshakes after. Sicarii leadership, on-camera derision, off-camera politeness, per accounts. The split reveals which God prevails, the crowd. Result, when heaven removes the crowd, the split becomes a pit. Evidence ledger as cataloged. Exhibit A, Guerrilla Hebrew homework, dated June 4, 2020. 1 page, approximately 25 to 30, distributed on June 6. Core theses, end time frame via Ezra, do not move until measure. 400-year captivity in sequence. All men shall die clarified, shall not taste death framed as the second death category. Function, a mirror that removes personality and enthrones scripture. Exhibit B, Stage 1, half recordings and behavior patterns. Persistent pressure to force a self-label of messianic position, refusal to walk the page, escalation toward physicality when ordered reading would decide the matter. Exhibit C, 2025. Allegations against the leader, public postings by others. Multiple close-in witnesses alleging detailed misconduct and showing purported documentation. Public effect, disqualification optics under Tanakh standards. Exhibit D, 2025 fulfillment dates and outputs. Path to the crown, April 12, 2025, communication upgrade marker. April 22, 2025, the 77-day planetary parade linkage and the sealed by sevens grid. Function, the life matching the timeline implied on June 4, 2020. Causality, what the audit accomplished. 1. Stages 1 to 3 offered 3 opportunities to do the simplest righteous act, read in order. 2. The Deuteronomic courtroom standard, 2 or 3 witnesses, was satisfied in real time. Judgment wrote on delay, years passed, then receipts surfaced where men had hidden them. 3. 4. By 2025 the contrast was surgical. The house that mocked the measure was measured by its own fruit. The man who submitted to the measure was measured out greater precision and output. The 2020 taunt, "You'll run out of gas," inverted on its speaker. The endurance mocked then is visible now in the measured sun, where each stands now. Guerrilla Hebrew, Sicarii as reported reputation damaged by public allegations from former spouses. Title set aside, camp structure effectively splintered. Pivot to reaction entertainment content. Brand present, priestly weight absent, consistent with lampstand removal. YAHshayin. Output increased, scrolls, releases, timelines, precision increased, dates, spans, sky markers coherent under the 2 Esdras axioms. Self-minimization unchanged. No premature self-crown, documents first, audit invited, vindication pattern. The very scriptures offered in 2020 now map his measurable story. Bottom line. In June 2020, a 1-page document placed the method on the table. Let the texts order the timeline. Let the measure rule the claims. The assembly rejected the method and challenged the messenger with "You'll run out of gas." Over the following years, the measure judged the messengers. The platform man was publicly undone by his own house. The document man was advanced by his own receipts. The homework page did exactly what heaven designed it to do. Separate men who love debate from men who love truth, and let time publish the grade. In mid-2020, those 3 encounters did more than create a moment with a camp. They opened a docket in heaven. When Yahweh sent YAHshayin, documents in hand, titles withheld, he wasn't staging a debate. He was serving notice. Stage 1, invitation. Stage 2, restraint. And Stage 3, the exam, together formed a Deuteronomic chain of witnesses that any priesthood should recognize, read, weigh, submit to the text. Instead, the assembly chose performance over process. They pressed for labels, refused ordered reading, and crumpled a page built to enthrone scripture rather than a man. In that refusal, the chief and his company did more than insult a visitor. He rejected a test from Yahweh and publicly marked himself for scrutiny. His taunt, "I'll keep doing the work of the Lord, you'll run out of gas," functioned like a signature on the exhibit. He placed himself under the scope by denying, mocking, and attempting to humiliate a true, disciplined, proven servant whom Yahweh had sent. It is vital to say plainly, those encounters were not the sole cause of what later befell him. Judgment in Scripture is rarely a single strike. It is accumulated record brought to light at an appointed time. What those encounters did was establish jurisdiction and chain of custody. Heaven served an exam. The exam was refused. Contempt for the text was entered into the record in front of witnesses. From that point forward, the leader stood under an open audit. Years later, as public allegations and purported receipts from those closest to him surfaced, and the priestly posture collapsed, the exposure did not appear as random misfortune. It read like a sealed warrant being executed. The demotion, splintering, and drift into low-gravity content were not mechanically caused by the homework page, but that page and the behavior around it placed him squarely under Yahweh's lamp, where time would search the inward parts and publish what it found. The contrast that followed makes the verdict legible. On one track, the house that refused ordered reading was measured by its own fruit, abdicated titles, a scattered structure, and a visible slide from Torah gravity to reaction entertainment, consistent with lampstand removal. On the other track, YAHshayin's life tightened, the measurement axiom he tried to hand them, "He does not move until the measure is fulfilled," became the scaffold for dated fulfillments, path to the crown, communication upgrade fulfillment, and sealed by sevens emerged, a neutral, auditable second witness. Workflow matured, and output increased rather than waned. The very methodology they mocked, documents first, text in order, time as courtroom, proved to be the method by which Yahweh vindicated his servant and adjudicated a platform. So, the close is clean. This was a heavenly audit. Yahweh sent a prophet into their midst. The prophet was denied, insulted, and mocked. The ordered scriptures were refused, and by that refusal, the assembly failed the test set in front of them. Those meetings did not single-handedly produce the later exposure, but they did mark the chief for exposure by placing him under righteous review. When the appointed season arrived, time, heaven's impartial bailiff, brought the hidden things to the surface and reduced an office that had exalted performance over submission. Meanwhile, the man they predicted would run out of gas kept moving under assignment, exactly because his fuel source was Yahweh's measure, not men's applause. 1 page, 3 dates, 2 diverging lives, the record remains, and the judgment is intelligible to anyone willing to do what was asked. At the beginning, sit down, read in order, and let the scriptures rule.